Hi, I'm Chris Hunsaker, and welcome to day 17 of our confinement or shut-in series. And I want to focus today on a key question, which is, what are you doing with your off season? For me, this has been a great time to focus on projects I haven't been able to work on, to spend more time reading and developing. I've been taking a couple of different courses and to just play with my family. It has been so great to not be on the road, have evenings with my wife and with my children and my grandchildren, being able to play and fool around. And I had just this great experience on Sunday evening. My wife and I had the evening free and we thought, let's watch something. We found a great little series on Netflix called Island at War. If you want to watch it, incredibly great. We watched the first episode and just had this pleasant, beautiful evening. That's not the problem. What happened next is, the next day, my wife and my daughter and my granddaughter, they all went down to go walking outside and get some fresh air and just be outside, to leave me in the office to work because I had some very important creative work that I needed to get done. But I didn't really want to do it because it was hard and I have to work at it and I'd have to grind a little bit. And I was thinking, yeah, not quite. You know what? And I thought, hey, episode 2 of Island at War. I'll just go out and watch an episode and, calm down and, relax a little bit, because after all, I don't have to be that on schedule. I don't have to be that tight. Well, I watched the second episode, then the third, then the fourth, then another show, and pretty soon 4 hours went by. And I stopped myself and I said, nah, I didn't just stop myself from watching the show, I stopped myself, because what I could feel was I was sliding into choosing comfort over courage. There were things I knew I needed to do, I wanted to do. They were part of my goals. It was absolutely the most important outcome of the day, because it took effort and work, and no one else was watching me, no one was making me, I didn't have to. I watched Netflix. Have you done that? Do you have areas in your life where you're making these small little negotiations, these small little defining down? Now, when we're trying to help people build habits and grow and develop, we talk about incremental improvement, the aggregation of marginal gains, small little improvements stacked one on top of each other, day after day, week after week, month after month, and you can fundamentally transform your life. It also works the other way. When you lower your standard a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there, pretty soon you're like Jay Williams that I saw on ESPN this morning talking about coming past the Tasty Cakes truck, buying a bunch of stuff, snacking all the time, and he's wearing the same jacket 2 days in a row because none of his other jackets fit because it's his fat jacket. You guys got fat clothes that when you know you're not eating well and you know you're not exercising, you don't want to stop, right? So you lower your standard, right? And you put on bigger clothes. Be careful about wearing too many sweatpants. Now, this isn't about health and weight and where you're at and what's going on. This is about lowering your standards and what are the habits that you're creating. Because you can define down just like you can define up. So when I said I have to stop myself, I did. I'm like, no more. I got up, I started working, I started moving stuff, and no more binging on Netflix. Does that make sense? That it's not that I don't want to recreate and have fun. It's that when you choose comfort over courage in every area of your life, it starts to define you down. More importantly, you start to build habits. When my kids were little, to teach them this, I put them all through this example, and I love doing it. I'd have them put their hands together, and I said, isn't it okay if we pick some family rules that we have to not do once? Like, let's say that you go out drinking with your friends one time. Now, my kids are 10 or 11, so it was appropriate for that question. And they'd say, I'd wrap it, and I'd say a thread around their hand. I'd say, pull your hands apart. Boom, they'd break it. I'm like, so see, you guys don't have to follow our family rules. You can break them and you'll be just fine. And my kids were like, yeah, this is great. This is what we've been waiting to hear. And then I said, what about 5 times? So 5 times, my daughter, boom, she breaks it apart. So then I said, what about 10 times? My son, Addison, goes, yeah, put it 10 times, and he broke it. And he was like so proud of himself. And I said, so I guess these doesn't matter. And they're like, no. So I said, put your hands together. I did it 20 times. Nobody could break it. See, there's a point where when you lower your standards often enough and you lower your standards deep enough, the thread gets strong enough, you can't break it. And the challenge is not just choosing comfort over courage. It's not just binging on some Netflix. It's not just too much Tasty Cakes. It's if you start to do this long enough, then you start to define your identity as that. I'm just not a runner. I'm just a procrastinator. I'm just a little heavy. Do you know any people like that? Intimately acquainted with anyone like that? So what I want you to do today, when we finish this tape, is I want you to grab a sheet of paper and I want you to write down, where have you during this confinement been lowering your standards? Where are you wrapping threads around your hand? Because here's the deal. When you get out of game shape, if you want to get back in the game, you got to get back in game shape. And the game is coming back. Everybody's going to go back. We are all going to have to return to a life. What kind of person are you going to become? One, which habits have you maintained and enhanced and developed during your off season? And which habits have you defined down? Have you defined lower? Have you given up? Have you gotten slower and weaker at? I had the privilege of listening to Dave Anderson this morning, and he gave this great talk. He does mental toughness coaching with elite athletes, including NBA athletes. And he talked about the fact that the big difference between an average NBA player and the great NBA players is their view of the offseason, their mindset about an offseason. The great NBA players see the offseason as their gift. It's where they get their edge. They don't dial back, they dial up, because there's not enough time in the regular season to get an edge, to become stronger, faster, smarter, better. But in the off season, they can, because all the mediocre players, according to Dave, they go to Europe and sit on the beach. But the best players, they know off season is when they get their edge. They never have to get back in game shape because they never get out of game shape. And so I'd like you today to look at that and say, hey, listen, where have I maybe lowered my standards? Where have I started to choose comfort over courage? Where have I started to wrap some thread around my hands and break it and stop it now? I call this kill the monster when it's tiny. And when you first notice that you're starting to negotiate down, to slip up, to lower your standards, kill it right then. And if it gets too far, what it does, it moves from this is what you do to this is who you are. It moves from a habit to an identity, and an identity is much harder to shift than a habit. One of the great things that I'm going to ask you to do is, this is your off season. This is your downtime. Use the off season to develop your edge, define your edge, sharpen your edge. Think about it. There's a bunch of people that have these great knives with these beautiful handles, and they show everybody, look at my knife, look at my handle, look at how awesome, got jewelry. You know what the knife matters? The blade. Did you sharpen the blade? Don't go back to work with a beautiful handle, well polished, and a dull blade. But sharpen the blade right now. Use this time to define your edge. Build your edge. Become bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, more compassionate, more loving, more peaceful, more creative than you've ever been. But the only way you're going to do that is you've got to choose courage over comfort. Continue to build structure and look for ways to make sure that every single day that COVID-19 isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. That life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. That all these things that you can't control aren't happening to you, they are happening for you, because you have the ultimate choice. How will I use my time? So make your list, write it down, have a conversation with someone, and I hope you have a great day.